we go. Hello, and welcome to episode 55 of Brews Less Traveled, the podcast exploring the best uncharted craft beer scenes across the United States. I'm Brian. I'm your host.
And I'm MC. I'm your co-host for all our episodes featuring the great city of Missoula. Brian, how's it going?
I am doing pretty well. I did something I don't normally do before the show. And did a little pre-gaming. I went out to a local brewery and met some coworkers, and they were checking at the brewery out for business reasons for our city brew tours, sister company of Brewvana business. And had some tasty English beers. I had a really nice bitter. I love when a brewery just has like an English pub ale, a bitter on.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice time, and I am excited to drink some Missoula beers tonight and hang out here. MC,
cool.
How are you doing?
Very good. I'm good. It's about 1,000 degrees here in Bend, Missouri today. So
yeah,
my whole week has basically just been about surviving. So not a lot of drinking, but I am looking forward to our beers tonight. So
yeah, a couple of refreshing beers tonight. It is also like heat index of 106 here in Pittsburgh, so not a comfortable day. I don't think for most people. I think it's pretty hot.
Right. Yep. Right. Yeah. I am trying to just remain grateful. A lot of breweries are not air conditioned, and luckily the one I work in is. So I'm just, trying to be grateful for that.
Yeah. As somebody said in the chat, hope everybody is staying cool. I'm just blown away that your brewery has AC in the production space.
I know, right? Yeah, it's
Good
nice. I mean, it's really hot, but it's better than, 105 degrees. So
yeah. Certainly. Especially on these very busy weeks leading up to the big summer drinking months, packaging all that beer. Well,
yeah, it's hard to keep that beer cold, but we're doing our damnedest. So
yep. And we got two great refreshing beers tonight. We'll be featuring beers on this episode from another great Missoula brewery, Draught Works, and we'll be drinking their blood orange Gose and my Ruca American Pale Ale.
And we're going to be joined by Sara Killeen from the Montana Craft Beer Connection. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and crack open our first beer. You ready, Brian?
Let's do it. I have never been more ready. Maybe you're going to switch things up from what people were expecting us to do with these two beers, but we're going to drink the sour
We're starting
first.
with the Gose, right?
Yes, please. I have this theory that when you drink a sour beer, especially one that has fruit in it, one that's a very fruit forward sour beer, kind of like cues your senses to be ready for fruit characteristics. And I think that works great whenever you're going to drink a hop forward beer right after your sour. So I might be just like completely off the mark with this theory. I am not like a certified Cicerone or anything. Like,
I don't know any of those.
Cheers.
You're onto something. Cheers. I think the hops will cut right through it. I'm not worried about it at all.
Yeah, and it's not like we're drinking a lambic or something. This is a nice, refreshing Gose. There's that beautiful salinity character on the back end that brings that sourness home. And
nice biting. You don't really get that dry graininess that you get in a lot of these wheat sour beers. It's nice and balanced.
Yeah, very nice beer from Draught Works here. Again, this is their blood orange Gose, 5.4% ABV, clocking in at under 10 IBUs.
Right.
For the folks that don't know, MC, how do you make, like, what makes a Gose sour?
Well, it's a kettle sour. So that means that something is added, instead of it being like wild fermented, something is added during fermentation to make it sour. In this case, lactic. It turns into lactic acid. And specifically, Goses are brewed with, you mentioned it, a little salt, and a little coriander. So this will be salty. Coriander is the seed of cilantro. So you'll get some like fresh, zesty, herbaceous notes. You seem surprised that I just said that.
I absolutely did not know that.
Now you know. Now you know. So yeah, when you think like coriander and cilantro remind me of one another, that's why. So you get those like summery, not super cilantro-y, but like, spices, fresh spices, a little bit of salt to like dry out your palate. I love gozes, especially in the summer on a hot day like today.
It's a style that is definitely deserving of the love it's getting nowadays in this newfound push for drinkable, sessionable sour beers. That thing that produces lactic acid that MC was referring to in these beers actually gets inhibited by IBUs. It actually gets inhibited by not IBUs, but inhibited by hops. And that's why with a lot of these Goses and Berliner Weisses, you won't see above 9, 10 IBUs. That lactobacillus, the lactic acid producing bacteria that makes these beers sour, actually gets affected by the acids in the hops. So kind of dial back the hops in these beers, let that acidity and sourness play the balancing role with the malts, throw in some nice fruit puree, and you got yourself a all day summer drinker. And this is a great example of one, certainly.
Right, right. And they're going to add that fruit during fermentation, not, when they're adding grains, not when the hops are added. Because even though there aren't a lot of hops added, there's always going to be a little bit of hops in beer to balance out that malt bill. So the fruit is added during fermentation, and that's why the fruit is like really sticking out, and it's nice and present.
Yeah. And for our beer club subscribers, our friends at Draught Works sent some awesome swag. So we got some stickers there. We got a nice coaster. My brain just like shut down there for a second. Couldn't remember the word coaster. Boy, that's not a good sign. And as well a koozie. So shout out to Draught Works for supplying those for our awesome beer club subscribers, and shout out to those.
Never have too many koozies.
Oh God, no. Especially now that I have a daughter, she likes to take them and play with them and stack them. And then whenever I need one, if I didn't have as many as I did, then I would really struggle to find one because she takes them all.
That's a hilarious toy. I like that.
Yep. That story.
I guess when your dad is a beer guy for a living, you play with koozies.
Yep. It's also like we keep them at her height so she can get to them. Coincidentally, they're at her height, so
leave the koozies out for the child.
Yeah. Somebody just said in the chat, this is a great beer for the beach. Absolutely, I would love this beer on the beach, but there are no beaches, no ocean beaches in Montana. But I was trying to think of a segue out of that. I'm just chugging along.
Gets you every time, huh, Brian?
It's not the pre-gaming. I'm very tired, actually. I just drank a cup of coffee like an hour ago. I thought that would get me going. I'm awake, I'm up, but brain is not firing like I need it to be. But what better time than to bring on our guest and get this conversation going in a better direction, certainly. So please join us in welcoming the co-founder and owner / editor-in-chief of Montana Craft Beer Connection, Sara Killeen. Hi, Sarah. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us. So let's get right into Montana Craft Beer Connection. You started that. You helped start that company in 2019. What was the drive to start a quarterly magazine focusing on craft beer in the Big Sky State back then?
Yeah, so I fell in love with craft beer when I moved back to Montana. And lucky for me, I was going to school at UM and there was plenty of it around me. I didn't have to worry about that too much. But then after graduating, I moved up to Great Falls, and there are craft beers up there, but you're not quite as immersed in the scene as you are in Missoula. And I found myself really wanting to know what was going on across the state in the beer scene. I have lots of family across the state, and so I have done quite a bit of traveling leading up to the start of the magazine and had a chance to get to try lots of beers across the state. But I found myself wanting to just know what was going on. And luckily, at the time of moving up there, there was a little newsletter called 406 Hops. And it was, I think, 4 to 8 page, just newspaper that kind of just talked about little things that were going on and had like a little map in the background. And that was really cool. And then one day it disappeared. And the other co-founder and I looked at each other and went, well, we can't be the only ones. And we started kind of getting to like immerse ourselves a little bit more in the beer community on both ends, the drinking end and the industry side of things, and found that we were right. We weren't the only ones. So we decided that it was about time that someone did something that highlighted all of the amazing, wonderful things that our state does, so that people all across it can know what's going on, because it's the 4th largest state as far as area goes. And it's very difficult for people on the eastern side to get over to the west side. I would know, I do it regularly, but so it felt like it was filling a niche that was needed.
Yeah, if that other publication is going to go away, then we're just going to do it ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. And it sounds like you're the expert on my next question. So what would you say what makes Montana's beer scene special? And in that scene, what role does Missoula play specifically?
Yeah, great question. I'd say what makes Montana beer scene special, I mean, we make great beer across the state.
That has been our experience so far, I think.
Yeah, which I think surprises a lot of people. And I think because it surprises people because a lot of our breweries are tiny. They don't make it out of the state. Most of them don't even make it out of the small towns that they're in. We've got, anywhere between 95 to 105 breweries in the state, depending on how you kind of want to figure that number. And only a small portion of them can. And so, like our beer is great. And then the other big, really special thing about our industry is the community. Montana in general is community focused. And within that, our sub communities are also very community focused. So it's really special to walk into a brewery anywhere in the state and know that you're going to be welcomed and warmed. And I guess what's really, really special is they come together, even though our state is as big as it is. We support each other. We're a community. I just quite literally the other day, so you all were talking about how you're going through a heat wave. We are flooding right now overnight. Yeah, and it was really cool to watch. One person put out a message on Instagram saying, hey, we need grain bags to make sandbags out of. And overnight, the beer community came together. So we're seeing breweries collect and can water so that they can have fresh drinking water. And it all happened overnight. We wouldn't, our beer community wouldn't be what it is without each other and the support that we have. And you see that in Missoula, Missoula being one of the top brewery locations in the state. You see them pull together and help the communities halfway across the state. Just earlier today, I was running around grabbing grain bags from breweries to help collect. And you see that. If someone is like, oh man, this ingredient that I need isn't going to ship until Monday. Do you have some? Can I borrow some? It's really special that we can come together that way, support each other. So
Yeah, wow. Especially after, in times of crisis, that's
Mhm.
amazing. And what a great use for grain bags. I
Yeah.
never know what to do with them other than to put them in the trash. That's great.
Let's take a beer break. Last week, parts of Montana and Wyoming near Yellowstone National Park were rocked by extensive flooding. The northern section of the park, which gets most of its visitors by way of Montana, was especially devastated, with early reports warning of an extended closure. Now this month we're featuring Missoula, a town located about 300 miles northwest of Yellowstone, but here at Brewvana we feel a special kinship with the entire state, as their statewide love for local craft beer exemplifies the spirit of this show. The small Montana towns near the northern entrance to Yellowstone rely heavily on tourism, and with these floods leaving that entrance inaccessible for some time, these areas will need help getting back on their feet. If you are able to, please consider donating to the relief efforts. We recommend the Montana chapter of the Red Cross, which can be found at montanaredcross.org. Now let's get back to the show. There was definitely a pride in Missoula and Montana in general, expressed from nearly every person I talked to when I visited Missoula. And I think that definitely plays a role in, from my perspective, played a big role in that, making that visit special and making that scene special. What little I saw of it was, everybody wanted to promote what was local and in the other breweries, and even breweries halfway across the state. And speaking of breweries halfway across the state, one of the founders of Draught Works, his family actually started a brewery over on the eastern side of the state. So the roots of craft beer in Missoula and with Draught Works go all the way back to, some of the earlier craft breweries in the state of Montana.
Absolutely. And now it's kind of cool to see that where, one of the founders of Draught Works came over from Eastern Montana. Now we see breweries in Missoula who take in, new brewers or home brewers that want to become brewers. They take them in, they help, teach them and let them grow so that they can go outside of Missoula or even start another one in Missoula.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about the breweries in Montana, both on this show and on the previous episodes this month, but there's also a lot of local maltsters and hopsters in the state and in the area as well. Can you talk about the importance of local ingredients in Montana beer?
Absolutely. And I think that actually has a lot to do with why our beer scene is so great. So Montana is one of the leading growers of barley in the world. So it naturally makes sense to have malting facilities. So we have malters that both work with local farmers. Malt Europe has a location up in Great Falls, and they work with lots of local farmers around there to malt versus, having to ship it halfway across the United States or the world. We can do it here in Montana. And then we also have malters that grow their own grains and malt it themselves, which is really, really neat to see. So I think we've got 4 major malting companies, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we do have so much barley that grows very, very well here in the state. And because of that, it only naturally makes sense for Montana breweries to use malt from Montana. And then hops also grow really well in Montana. We're right on that that line in the northern hemisphere that hops naturally grow well in.
I'm blanking on it. Yeah.
The latitudinal line.
Yes, that one. Yes. Thank you. So there's a specific latitude both in the northern and southern hemisphere that hops naturally grow in. Montana sits right on that line, and so it also kind of makes sense that we grow hops here. You'll walk around a lot of different towns in Montana, and you'll see hops just growing on people's garages.
Cool.
Naturally. So so it kind of just makes sense that if we're growing it and making it here, we should probably use it when we can. And you'll see that a good majority of Montana breweries do that. They they locally source as much as possible. You'll see it from other ingredients like honey and fruits, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it ties back into the fact that Montana as a whole, we like to support our community. Montana's been kind of this like little isolated ray of sunshine for a while. We're getting a little more influx of people moving in, but for a long time it was kind of just all of us out here in the big state of Montana, and we couldn't survive if we didn't support each other. So
yeah, that's a great point. And as like grain gets harder and harder to get for a variety of reasons, what a like special advantage that you guys will have in Montana, and that your neighbors, I'm sure, will be seeking very, very soon if they're not already.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, we are seeing those same grain problems here as well, but
yeah,
being so as big as we are, hopefully it will have a slightly smaller impact. But
hopefully, yeah.
Latitude 48.
There we go.
Just to throw that out there.
Perfect.
In your brain.
Yeah.
All right. So I heard that you brewed a Pink Boots collab with Draught Works, actually. Is that right?
Yeah, I was there for the later end of the brew. Yeah, I also teach at the university, so I had to wait for my classes to get done before I could hop on over. But yeah, that was the first one that I got to participate in, and then got to be part of another one as well. So.
Very cool. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the brew day, the beer that you brewed?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was an IPA. No, I'm blanking on it. Sorry. I brewed a couple of them, so I'm like trying to remember which one was what. But yeah, it was really cool to come in. I think we had Draught Works had hosted about 20-ish, give or take a few, women from mostly Missoula, but had one or two come in from outside of Missoula. And we had both females, femme-leaning, non-binary, as well as transgender involved, which was just really cool to see. Just coming in. Yeah, so basically they brought us in and we got to tour the facility, which it's such a great, massive facility. Oftentimes we'll see the tap room side and not even realize how ginormous the, production area is. And that was really cool to see. And then, got to just be part of the brews and work alongside the brewer to help wherever was needed, during the grain out, adding hops, turning on and off valves. And I think it was really awesome experience, especially for some of us that aren't in the brewing side of things. We had women there that were brewers or who worked in the cellars, but we also had taproom managers, owners, beer magazine people, sales reps who don't always get to be in the back and get to see what's going on. And so it's super educational and just helped open our eyes a little bit more to what goes on behind the beer that we drink, sell, promote. So it was really cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love when on Pink Boots days, women from the service and all over beer get to like jump in and get their hands a part of it. It's such a great way to like interact with other women in beer that would never interact with one another otherwise. And there's something so much fun about when they're like, okay, it's time to grain out, and you get to like get your hands in there and pull the grain out of the mash tun. Really feels like, you worked for your beer. That's so much fun.
And I know the brewers love it that we get so excited to do that part.
Yeah, for sure.
They're like, oh, you want to come in and grain out? Oh, cool. Let me show you. And yes, Sarah, when you round that corner at Draught Works and you like come and see this bit, and you're like, oh my God, it's really big back here.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of space back there.
Mm-hmm. And then you go around the corner and you see there's giant stacks of cans. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's a really cool facility with some really cool folks over there. I think it's time to crack our second beer from Draught Works tonight.
Let's do it.
As I've already mentioned, I had an excellent visit to this brewery. And Sarah, what else do you like about Draught Works and how it fits into the Missoula beer scene?
I like Draught Works. One, I really enjoy this beer. I did a little write-up on it not too long ago. It's a great summer sipping beer, easy to take on the river. The other big thing that I like about Draught Works is how community focused they are, kind of bringing it back to everything we've talked about. But like other breweries, they're constantly working with other people in the community, and Draught Works constantly is supporting and raising money for nonprofits. They do pint nights, they do events. They recently brewed a beer with a marijuana distributor, I guess you might call them. It doesn't have any, marijuana or THC in it, but it was inspired by beer that was really cool to drink and talk about and just explore with. I thought that was fascinating. So they're constantly working with, other businesses, other nonprofits. And then we just had our Pride Week, and they brewed the official Pride beer. So they're constantly working to support other, communities within our larger community, like a lot of the other breweries do. And that's, I think, just really special.
Yeah, they're you could see how I was there during the daytime, and you could see how that building would turn into such a good atmosphere for parties or community events. And you could hear from the people that work there the love that they had for their local community. So that's no surprise that they play that role.
Yeah. So other than Draught Works, we're also featuring Kettle House and Imagination in our Missoula box. But what are some other breweries that our listeners just are going to have to check out when they inevitably make it out to Missoula?
Yeah, right now I think we have 12 of them. And honestly,
Wow.
I couldn't recommend one over the other. They're all really great and all have their own little uniqueness to them. Yeah, so that's a really hard question. The cool thing is Missoula's not that big. It's not hard to get around to all of them. Most of them are either downtown, close to downtown, or along our walking and bike paths. So that's pretty neat. All of them. Go to all of them.
Yeah, if there's only 12, like, what are you doing?
It's
it's not that much.
Yeah,
it's a day and a half. You could do that.
Yeah.
18 hours, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah, and you can only have 3 at most of them. So
legally,
because of the law, we talked about that.
Mhm.
That's right. I
Mhm.
forgot about that.
Yeah, and there are a few that have split their tap room and their brewery into 2
Right.
separate businesses. So that makes it a little easier. Their tap room can then acquire beer and wine or an all beverage license and can serve more. But yeah, most of them can only serve 48 ounces, which makes it easy. Have your 3 and go on to the next one. And for the most part, you can walk to the next one. So
very cool.
Yeah, Missoula seemed like a very walkable city. It was I was just there 3 weeks ago, and we're talking about the heat wave today. It was snowing on the day that I visited Missoula, and I still had no problem walking around and visiting the M and walking back across campus and back into downtown and checking down a couple places around downtown. And yeah, it was fine. Coming from Pittsburgh, it's flat, so it was bliss in terms of walking.
Well, the town is flat. We're completely surrounded by mountains, but
yeah.
That's a good situation to find yourself in. I think that's the perfect way to do it. Live in a flat city with 12 breweries surrounded by mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Doesn't sound too bad at all.
Mm.
So one of the greatest things I've seen, both in researching for this podcast and in all of craft beer in general, has to be the Montana Craft Beer and Bods calendar that you and the fine folks at Montana Craft Beer Connection put together this year, at least. I don't know about other years, but can you tell us about that calendar and the process behind that, and the charity it benefited, and all the awesome stuff associated with that?
Yeah, so 2022 was the first year. It is geared up and already working on 2023. I don't know, I was sitting around just thinking about what else does the Montana beer scene need. Kind of the name of the game of, I guess, how I started the business in the first place. And I don't know, this idea popped in my head. I think I'd probably seen some other calendars that were raising money for people. And I was like, you know what doesn't get highlighted all the time in the magazine is how funny and like cool and relaxed a lot of our brewery people are. Like they're hilarious and they're easygoing. And I said, well, what if we did a calendar that showed off just how funny they are? And so the Montana Craft Beer and Bods kind of just emerged out of that. And I was a little worried at first because there was a lot of the Me Too stuff that had recently sort of come up and everything. And I was a little worried about it. But then I got talking to the gal who does all the photography, Jessie, and she owns Picture Montana. So she does photography across the state as well, and has been into beer photography for a while. And I got talking to her, and we sat down and we had a good conversation about like, how do we do this respectfully, and worked out all the details and started talking to breweries around the state, and they loved it. They loved the idea. They thought it was hilarious. They thought it was funny. And most importantly, they really, really respected the fact that we wanted to work with their comfort zone and their level of where they wanted to be. So yeah, and with that, I wanted it to be a fundraiser. Again, going back to the community thing, wanted it to raise money for a Montana nonprofit that I felt was doing some amazing, great work in the state. And so for 2022, we worked with the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary, which is a nonprofit that brings in non-releasable animals. So whether it was an animal that was a wild animal, specifically wild animal that was adopted by someone that didn't understand you shouldn't adopt and declaw a cougar, or whether they were hit by a car and would never be able to function in the wild again, those sort of things. So they bring those animals in. And what I love is it's not a zoo. It's a place where these animals can respectfully live out their lives in a comfortable and as natural possible environment. So every animal has their quiet, safe space where they can go and aren't viewed by the public. They do things like their cougar that got declawed obviously can't climb trees, but cougars love to pounce on their prey. And so they made a spot where the cougar can get up to, and they put their food on the ground and give them the opportunity to pounce on their prey. So just, things like that. And then on top of it, they also help provide education about our greater wildlife ecosystem and how we can live with it. And so that maybe one day, they won't be needed. But yeah, so it's really cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then, every year I'll start. Yes, I'll start.
I was just going to ask for some context. That's perfect.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. So, yeah, every year I'll work with a different nonprofit, and
oh my gosh, what a fun project.
It really is
so funny.
I can't wait to buy my 2023 calendar.
Perfect. Pre-orders go on soon.
Oh, I will be looking for that link.
Amazing. So Sarah, we ask all of our guests this, but what is one thing that you wish either Missoula or Montana at large was more well known for?
Gosh, that's hard. I mean, I think we kind of touched a little bit on it, but our beer, yeah, we get, so we have a BJCP sanctioned beer competition that happens every year. It actually just happened And we get the privilege of flying in these certified to Grand Master certified judges from all over the states. We've had them come up from Alabama, Texas, California. And the really cool thing is they always look at us and they go, wow, Montana makes really great beer. And they don't, like, people don't know that. Yeah. And so I guess, I mean, that alone right there. And then again, our community, if you walk into Montana, you better be ready to help support the local community.
It's not
that.
It's not hard to want to support the community. Honestly, you get in that town and it's just this beautiful, picturesque mountain scenery all around it. And everybody was so kind to me when I was there. I don't know. I'm not special. I'm sure they give that treatment to everyone. And I felt very welcomed. And
oh, come on, Brian. You're special.
I am. My mom lets me know I'm special. Hi, Mom. You're probably watching. Yeah, it you could tell that it's a special town, and it means a lot to people. And there's definitely a welcoming feeling that I felt from Al and Robert at Imagination and everybody that I talked to, like even like my Uber drivers. Also, speaking of getting around easily, I don't think I spent more than like $10 on an Uber the entire time I was there. So
yeah,
another reason to go to Missoula and explore the beer scene.
Yeah, we try to make it easy, and we just want to share. We want to share the cool things that we're doing and the fun projects that are being worked on. We've got a great music scene, we've got great art, and we just want to share it. We want to welcome you in and share what we have to offer.
Yep, that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to get out there. I definitely didn't know about the beer scene in Montana. I mean, the beers that we've been drinking over the last couple of episodes we haven't had one that wasn't absolutely excellent. So I think that it would not surprise me at all if some listeners make a beer trip out there. I know that going to Seattle, going to Maine, those are like some pretty popular like beercations, but I think Missoula's the next beercation. What do you think?
I think so.
MC, we're talking about the listeners. I think you need to go there. It seems perfect for you.
Just
great
telling
beer,
my husband, like
good fishing.
Yep.
Come on.
I know. I was just telling my husband like last week, right after we signed off, I was like, I think we need to go to Montana. Yeah. So
well, let's hope we
might be on the docket.
Let's hope we can convince him of that. Sarah, thanks again so much for joining us. Anything to plug before we sign off here?
Yeah, the calendars, they should be out on pre-order here sometime in August, so keep a lookout for those. The next issue of the Montana Craft Beer Connection comes out in July, and you do have to be in Montana to get it, or you can subscribe to it on my website and get it shipped to you. But as of right now, it's print only. So if you're curious, want to learn more about the Montana scene, go to my website, just montanacraftbeerconnection.com, and subscribe, learn all about what Montana has to offer and what we're doing. And
socials, they could follow you on
Instagram.
Yeah,
absolutely. Montana Craft Beer Connection on Facebook, and then MT Beer Connect on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, give them a follow. Sarah and all of the contributors to Montana Craft Beer Connection do great work covering the local scene there. So if you want to stay in touch with Montana beer after this podcast, I cannot think of a better way to do so. So thanks again, Sarah, for joining us, and thanks to MC for co-hosting. I said coasting.
Coasting. I like it.
Coasting.
I'm the coast.
Yeah. Coast. Is that a Yinzer accent thing? I don't know. Cheers to you both.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're so welcome, Sarah. You can find more from our featured brewery tonight, Draught Works, at draftworksbrewery.com. As always, if you're digging the show, listening to the podcast. You can support us by signing up for the beer club at brewvana.com. As a member of the beer club, you get a box of amazing local beers shipped to you monthly, and you'll get to drink those same beers right on the podcast here on the stream while we drink them. You can heckle me from the chat. I think I've told that joke before. Moving on. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yes, we have a TikTok. Remember, I said this last week. We're cool and we're hip, and we're going to do TikTok videos. You can follow us on YouTube, Untapped, at Brewvana. We'll be back next week with another episode featuring this wonderful beer scene of Missoula. But until then, stay safe, be kind, and support your local breweries. Cheers, everyone. Woo. Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.